On the pod this week, we are going to talk about the Macalester Groveland neighborhood. We're going to talk about individual agents versus teams and what that means in terms of your buying or selling potential. We're going to talk about BoomTimes.
As always.
But we didn't do it last week.
No, we did not.
Nope. And we are going to have an interview with Shay Lunseth, who is the co-owner, co-founder of Lunseth Organic Lawns, or Organic Lawns by Lunseth, and Lunseth Lawncare.
It's a mouthful.
That's a mouthful, but we're going to get it done this week.
This must be the place. Yeah, this must be the place. Ain't no time to waste. Ain't no time to waste. So whether you in Minneapolis or Saint Paul, Bloomington to Maple Grove, from the east side to the west side, down south to way up north, let me hear you say, this must be the place. Yeah, this must be the place. This must be the place.
Hello, and welcome to This Must Be the Place, the only Twin Cities real estate and real estate adjacent podcast where one of the hosts stopped by an AA meeting last week thinking it was all about asbestos abatement.
That's the worst one. So this is the worst one yet.
It sounds like it could be like a early 2000s like emo band name, like asbestos abatement theory.
Sounds like the worst continuing education class that they could possibly have.
Don't waste your time on asbestos. Oh, I hate that genre, man.
The whiny sad boy rock.
Like Good Charlotte, more like
Good Charlotte.
Bad Raleigh.
Bad Raleigh.
Blink 182. Anyway, that genre is the worst.
It's like it gave way to the sad boy rap thing.
Yeah.
So now there's this movement in hip hop where it's like, you know, I don't want to categorize XXX Tentacion as that, but like, dude might have been the start of that Juice WRLD, but like they were still cool, but it's devolved into like, imagine the lead singer of Good Charlotte whining on
Bad
some
Raleigh.
like, imagine the good singer of Bad Raleigh whining on some rap music.
It's just the worst.
Yeah.
It's just the worst genre. Anyway, welcome to This Must Be the Place.
Yes.
Where we will not be talking about Jimmy Eat World all day. We are going to start today by talking about a topic that I feel like a lot of people not in the real estate industry, people that are thinking of buying or selling, don't really know too much about. That is, what is my best plan for a realtor? What is the difference between a team and an individual realtor? So that's something we're going to talk about right now. And an individual realtor is what Mr. Casey Golden here to my left and I are. We are individual realtors. That means that we are 100% involved of every step of the process from day one until forever, really.
We don't have to run it by anybody.
No.
We run it by ourselves.
Yes. We don't run it up a chain.
It's not like buying a car where they're like, let me run it by my sales manager.
Right. We don't
for the
delegate.
undercoat.
Yep.
Coating.
Yep. You're going to want that Johnson rod.
Along with the Svetzer valves.
Yeah.
Because it's all ball bearings nowadays.
So we'll talk about individual agents first. They both have their benefits. So we'll talk about those. Individual agents, like I said, we are there from the day we first talk to you or meet you until the end of time, really. It's true.
You'll never get rid of us.
You'll never get rid of us. But we handle every part of everything with the transaction. We handle all the documents ourselves, all the contracts ourselves, all the negotiation ourselves.
We're there at your wedding. We're there at your son's bris.
Yep.
Quinceañera.
Yep.
We are at your wake. And
we'll have some lovely things to say at the wake.
Part of the family.
Yeah, we're part of the family, yeah. So that's kind of why we feel like being an individual agent is best for us and best for our clients.
Speak for yourself, buddy. I've been trying to get golden shields to happen here since the day I came into this world.
It flows off the tongue.
Golden shields.
Golden shields.
Marketing capability of that unit.
Someday, we may be on a team called Golden Shields. If for no other reason.
Just the name.
Just the name alone.
And the logo. Any designers out there, you want to help sway this guy?
Yep.
Send him our way.
Yes.
We will pay.
That said, he would be the only person I would be comfortable doing a team with. But yeah, so we're there from when we originally introduce ourselves, when we're communicating with lenders and other agents.
Yep.
We're doing all that work ourselves. We're there at the closing for you and beyond. So that's kind of some broad brushstrokes things of why we prefer our lot in life in this industry. What have you to say, sir?
Look, I think if you spoke to realtors who run a team versus us, we would tell you that we give you more personalized and individual attention. You're never dealing with one person for appointments and one person for showings and another agent
for open houses and another for inspections.
Like you think you're getting the guy, the main girl, the main woman, the lady in charge, and a 23-year-old assistant shows up first week on the job, and you have to have the same conversations all over again. That doesn't happen with individual realtors. What you see is what you get, right? And because of that, you need to be really picky and really careful about who you choose as an individual realtor, right?
You do.
Because you really are in that relationship, and if you don't do your due diligence, you might have a great experience. I mean, I would tell you with Andrew or I, you're going to have an amazing experience, right? But with some of the less seasoned or unscrupulous people in our industry, you might not have as great of an experience. Whereas if you're on a team, you generally know that the people in charge of that team, they run teams for a reason. At least I think so. Like you'd be hard pressed to find a team that I wouldn't say the namesake of that team aren't capable, competent.
Yeah, they'll get you to the finish line for sure.
Right. It's just you might have to deal with some passing off of people to get to that point.
Yes. As a buyer or a seller.
Right. But that being said, as a team, you can, from a realtor standpoint, you can do more volume, right? You can have more houses, have more clients.
Yep.
So your pool,
get leads,
right? So your pool is a little bit wider. To say, I might have a client that fits the bill when purchasing a house.
Right.
Or I have a client that's selling a house, and as a buyer, you'd be perfect for this. Let me match you up. Like, luckily, I feel like we get to bring the best of both worlds to that because we are through Coldwell Banker, and I don't want a shameless plug for them, but they are the largest brokerage in the Twin Cities Metro.
With the most agents.
And we do have the most volume, the most agents, the most houses.
The biggest network.
We do have access to all the exclusive listings, whether they're on a team or not.
Correct.
Right? So we kind of bring all of those advantages to the table by virtue of just being
no downsides with us, brother.
No downsides.
No. And as Casey was saying, like sometimes the risk with an individual agent is if you have a question, whether you're a seller or a buyer, if you're somewhere along in the process, if you have a question at 8:15 p.m., that's the risk. Sometimes you won't get as responsive of an agent, but with good individual agents, Casey and I feel like for us that's the way to go because we will respond to you at 8:15 p.m. Or even 10:15 or 11. I'm usually in bed by 11:15.
Yeah, set your boundaries, buddy.
Yeah, we'll set boundaries. We'll say 7 a.m. to 11.
Yeah, you might have a weak point of contact, right? Like a lot of teams enlist newer agents to be lead generators. So your initial point of contact might be an immediate handoff to somebody else, right? And as an agent, so from my perspective, it was like let's just start individual and try to build it up.
That's how I did it too, and I totally couldn't agree more.
And I think I think you build stronger relationships with your clients that way because you can go the extra mile, you can focus. And again, like I don't want any team leads watching this and being like, that's not true. We go the extra mile because there are so many teams, so many great realtors and great teams that will go that extra mile, that have the actual resources to maybe to do some things and put two people in two places at once where we have a scheduling conflict. We might have to say, hey, let's push it back 30 minutes or whatever.
And at the end of the day, like as long as your agent is, and I say this a lot, accountable and communicative. Those are my two biggest adjectives. With my business. As long as you have those and you have somebody that knows the business and experience and smart, you're gonna be good. After that, it's just vibes. It's like who are you gonna have a good relationship with? Who are you gonna? Because it's it's a tight relationship for a month, 2 months, 3 months longer. When you're getting a transaction done. So who are you going to vibe with? If you have all those other things I mentioned, and you'll clearly vibe with Casey or myself, that's kind of the TLDR version of this topic, I feel like.
What is TLDR?
Too long, semicolon, didn't read.
And now, This Must Be the Place presents Neighborhood Watch.
We're going to talk about the Macalester Groveland neighborhood, also called Mac Groveland, more
Where's that?
familiarly.
Where's that located?
I hear St. Paul.
St. Paul.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about spit some truth?
Spit some truth about Mac
Some
Groveland.
facts.
Macalester Groveland, a beautiful neighborhood
Tree-lined.
in the heart of St. Paul. It is a beautiful tree-lined neighborhood that starts on Grand Avenue and continues to Randolph Avenue, south to Randolph Avenue. And then if you follow Ide Mill, or let's just say Lexington for practical purposes.
The short line for the regs.
Lexington Parkway, all the way to the Mississippi River.
To the west, yep.
Yep, to the west. So it is a rectangular neighborhood in between Miriam Park and Highland Park. And it is, dare I say, even though I don't live there, it is my favorite neighborhood in St. Paul for many reasons.
You went to college there?
I did go to college there. It is named for Macalester College and Groveland Park. Groveland Park was the old neighborhood in the 1800s that was initially there, and then Macalester College kind of combined the two and became Macalester Groveland.
I went to Groveland Park Elementary School. I bet you didn't know that.
I didn't know that. Groveland Park Community Center is a really cool little community center. They flood the whole thing in the winter time, and you get a huge ice skating rink there. Enormous.
In elementary school, pretended to read Thrasher magazine and pretend like I knew everything about it to impress cooler kids than myself. It did not turn out well.
At the Groveland
at the Groveland Park Elementary School, yes.
So the architecture in the neighborhood, you got lots of craftsmen, lots of Tudor revivals, lots of two-story colonials, early 1900s architecture throughout. Median price is $450,000. Average price is somewhere around $517,000. So well above the Twin Cities metro as a whole. Typically, there are less houses on the market in Mac Groveland. Typically, they go faster.
More per square foot.
It is an incredibly desirable neighborhood from a walkability standpoint, from a culture standpoint, from a things to do standpoint. Lots of great schools. You can check the school ratings and decide if that matters to you. But my kids went to. Well, I guess that's right inside of Highland. So Expo Elementary. No, that's in
Mac Groveland,
yep. Which is a phenomenal school. I think one of the best math programs. Now, it's inside. It's I was thinking it was on Randolph.
It is.
It is on Randolph.
South of Randolph.
So it's technically it's Highland. Yeah. Highland adjacent. Sometimes I think Highland and Mac Groveland are like a blur. The lines get very blurred between the two neighborhoods because they do feel like an extension of one another.
And it's a true story because Randolph isn't quite the barrier that like Grand Avenue is.
No,
right? It's kind of a more gray area.
Yeah. I know that you did some cool research on something that you wanted to talk about. Do you want to talk about some of the? I mean, we always get into food. Do you want to talk about some of the restaurants and stuff, or you want to dive into the history? Because there's a lot of history about the Mac.
Yeah. Well, let's chop it up with some things to do really quick.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about. Shout out to my aunt, who is the owner of the Italian pie shop on Grand Avenue.
Delish.
On the south side of Grand Avenue.
I didn't know that, man. I love that place.
Yeah, right next to Macalester College, actually.
Yeah.
Right next to Shish, which we can talk about too.
Sheesh.
But my son is 15, and he recently got his first job, and he works at the Italian pie shop
gonna have to
on
go
Grand
there
Avenue. Yeah.
Make his
And
life
I want to
miserable.
say, yeah, that's right. It's really fun to go in there and torture him. Because just roll his eyes at us while we're watching him. But low key, we talked to Ryan Elder last week about Minnesota style pizza, quote unquote, where you've got the thin crust that kind of comes as an afterthought, and it's all about the sauce, kind of a sweeterish sauce, the toppings, and then the cheese goes on top. Italian Pie Shop is kind of like that.
Prime
the pizza's
example.
Great.
Yeah.
It's like nobody talks about it when you talk about like best pizza in the Twin Cities, and this is not just a shout out to my aunt's restaurant. It's so good.
It's delicious.
It's the best Italian fries.
Has she always owned it, even when it was up in?
No, when it was down the road on
Yeah.
Grand. No, I don't even know how many years she's owned
Same
it for.
recipe?
A long time. Yeah, same
It
recipe.
doesn't feel like the pizza changed since
No.
then, which is a good thing.
But the Italian fries are, I will sing the praises of the Italian fries there. Sausage and broccoli Italian fries with extra sauce will be my death row meal when I go on death row for some reason. I have not considered what crime that will be yet, but yeah, I wanted to shout out that place first and foremost. What do you got?
I love it all.
All of it.
I'm a large man that loves it all. Shish.
Shish, love it.
I call it sheesh because I like to say sheesh when I say, where are we going for dinner?
It's adorable.
The chicken shawarma there, ridiculous.
Yeah, great
so
gyros.
Good. So good. We had it for lunch the other day, and my son was like, can we go back and get 2 more chicken shawarmas for dinner?
Does he talk like that?
Sometimes. I love the place. Chips Clubhouse on Snelling. Ooh, one of the best burgers in the cities. Reticent to say so. Just had it the other night.
I've never been. I've heard good things.
One of the best burgers in the city. Amazing. The Uptowner, mainstay breakfast place on Hamlin
Greasy Spoon.
on Lexington and
Grand.
Lexington Grand or Hamlin and Grand?
Lexington
and Grand.
Southwest corner.
Yeah, just some of the best bacon in the city. Great salsa. I mean, their bacon is like primo, top notch. Like
This is the second time in this podcast you've talked about your affinity for bacon.
bacon is
It's so good.
as a breakfast food. If you don't have good bacon, get off my list.
For sure.
To me,
Coming at me with turkey bacon, get out of here.
okay, yeah, exactly, right. The Colossal
Colossal Cafe.
Cafe is over
Yeah.
there. Douai Focacceria, the Breadsmith, Nelson's Ice Cream, Iron Ranger.
Love Iron Ranger.
Great place. One of the best kept secret patios in the entire Twin Cities
But I don't
metro.
think that's Matt Groveland.
Oh, for sure is.
It's east of Lexington. By
Blurry.
70 feet.
Yeah. All right. Technically.
But it's a great place.
Well, then I was going to say the Lexington.
Again,
Not
5 feet
quite.
away.
All right. And then my personal favorite restaurant in the entire area there, Estelle's. I'll shout out the Groveland Tap before I say
And
Estelle's.
MK Viet. I want to shout out MK Viet.
It's
for their
cool.
egg rolls.
It's okay. It's not Estelle.
I've never been to Estelle.
Oh my God, dude. It is so good. It's worth going there.
I rarely go to St. Paul.
They
We
have
discussed this.
Papas Bravas.
Oh, I love Papas Bravas. Or
With
Patas-
the
Papas Bravas.
Papas.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
care.
like a red sauce,
I don't know,
right?
yes.
Yeah,
It
I've made
is.
it
It's
before.
like a piri kind of sauce, but like
Yeah.
it is so good. It is. I have dreams about this
Yeah.
sauce.
Yeah.
Great pastas, incredible burger, piri chicken, but like they make a great drink.
Is that
great
the joint
cocktail.
on Fairview and St. Clair?
Yeah, it used to be like Heartland, right next to Caleb's Happy Feet and So What, across from the
across from the Wine Thief and Ale
Yep,
Jail.
yes. Yep. Right, like not
Great
kitty
little wine
corner, but
shop.
down the street from the Groveland Tap.
I'm a wine guy, so if you ever need any wine wrecks, give me a call.
Yeah, so there's so many good places. The original Dunn Brothers Coffee, right there.
Yep.
Snelling and Grand.
And
So lots of great places if you live in the neighborhood that you can walk to or get to pretty quickly. Grand Cycle. And then it also has Macalester College. So you see a lot, nice age diversity.
you were roommates with Kofi Annan, weren't you?
He was my roommate.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
You're the same age.
Yes. Walter Mondale was
Kofi Annan did go there.
Walter Mondale was our hall proctor.
Your RA.
Yes, our RA. That's what it was called.
Casey and Kofi, keep it down.
But like the neighborhood makeup, you have sort of older folks that have been there forever, and then you have students that are, what was the word I used?
Smattering.
Smattered
A
throughout
smattering of
the
students.
neighborhoods. And it makes for a really cool dynamic and always something interesting happening in the neighborhood. And then shout out, you can go ahead and get to what you want to get to at this point. But yeah, Mac Groveland is
It's a great place for food.
It's my number one in St. Paul. It's my number one community.
Yep. I would say it's my number one in St. Paul too.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on from that, I want to talk about Stonebridge. I did not know what Stonebridge was.
What is Stonebridge?
I'm going to talk all about it.
Okay.
I was doing Matt Groveland research, and this thing kept popping up, and I was like, "What is this thing?" So there was this dude named Oliver Crosby, rich as all get out.
Crosby Farms?
No idea. No, definitely not, because this dude was like a patent inventor guy.
Okay.
That's how he got rich.
Okay.
And he invented like little things that like the military use. He's like the version of the guy. Widgets. Yeah. He's like the version of the guy that invented like the plastic thing on the tip of shoelaces, who's like a billionaire probably.
Okay. All right.
Like he's like that kind of guy. Other than that, seems pretty unremarkable. Okay. Sorry, Crosby kin. Maybe he was. But anyway, he was rich as all get out, and he built what there's an architectural critic named Larry Millett, and I watched an interview with him, and he says that Oliver Crosby commissioned a build of the greatest private estate ever built in the Twin Cities in Matt Groveland. It was kind of where St. Clair meets Mississippi River Boulevard, maybe a block in.
Yeah.
But it was sat on 28 acres, which is insanely huge.
Yeah.
Especially in a densely populated area, to have that much hubris to think, hey, I'm just gonna build a house in an estate with multiple man-made lakes and bridges and malls on 28 acres. But he did it anyway. And he commissioned an architect named Clarence Johnston to build this home for him on this massive estate. Clarence Johnston was the architect that did Northrop Auditorium on the University of Minnesota campus. And other than that,
the home's still there, right?
no.
No?
Nope. Other than that, he just built prisons.
That's good. He built this guy a gorgeous home and prison.
Yeah, he did Northrop Auditorium, he did Stonebridge, and all I could find is he did a lot of
prisons,
like insane asylums.
That's good.
And
For him.
Sanatoriums, and he did a lot of that. But yeah, so this was late 19th century, I believe, early 20th century. And it was just massive. It was 24,000. The home he built was 24,000 square feet. The home was 24,000 square feet.
It's rather large.
It's rather large. I'm sitting in my 2,000 square foot house in South Minneapolis, and this would be 12 times larger, which is insane.
That's big.
Yep. He built a city block long mall, like I said, artificial lakes. Anyway, after this thing was completed, Oliver frickin' died a couple years later.
Got to enjoy it.
You got to really not enjoy it that much. croaked a couple years later. It obviously went to his wife and kids or whatever. But as what happens with a lot of these older estates, and we'll put some pictures. Casey will put some pictures up on
Socials.
On the TikTok of what this Stonebridge looked like, because it was amazing.
Yeah.
One would say ostentatious. I would say that.
Yeah.
Because I like to use syllables and sound smart. But so he'll put some of that up. But so what happens in a lot of these cases is it goes to the family. The family's like, I don't know what to do with this. This is more space than I need.
Yeah.
Why do we need 28 acres in St. Paul?
They parceled it off.
Went into disrepair.
Oh, okay, sure.
So basically, the city, I think, like condemned it in the late 40s, early 50s.
Oh.
Tore it down, and now on that 28 acres sits 70 homes, 70. And if you go just east of Mississippi River Boulevard on St. Clair, like a block east is what's called Stonebridge Avenue.
Yeah.
And
it's like a little loop.
Yeah, it's like a little loop. And the cool thing is, among all these big Tudors that were built like in 1918, sits these 70 homes that were built mid-century.
Yeah.
Because it was after they tore that down. And it just adds some vibrancy and character and uniqueness.
That is super interesting, because that is really the only part of Mac Groveland that has that mid-century.
Yeah, because you get some of that, like if you go south into Highland Park, you get some more mid-century.
Yep.
But Mac Groveland really doesn't have that, except for that little pocket where Stonebridge once stood.
Yeah, that's super interesting, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. I went on Facebook, and I went in the Mac Groveland community page, which is a great page of like all the neighborhood pages in the cities. The Mac Groveland community page is the most engaging and polite and kind, which sometimes if you're searching Nextdoor or neighborhood websites, it's a lot of like get off my lawn and like
or TikTok recent experience for
Casey.
like
so thank you, shout out to the Mac Groveland community page, because I said to them, hey, do you guys have any groupthink history you want me to share here? And I was inundated with responses. And lots of people wanting to check out the pod and just offer what they know, personal stories about their family history, some things that I for sure needed to fact check to make sure we're legit. And since it's in the Lexington, apparently a bartender who worked at the Lexington in the 70s invented the Shirley Temple, because he also worked for Shirley Temple as a child. Couldn't fact check that, but wanted to throw that in there.
Interesting.
So I got a lot of stuff. They talked about houses that have ice skating rinks and bowling alleys in the bottom. Lots of old farmstead homes that still exist on these little neighborhood streets. Talked about how Old Dutch potato chips was started by a guy named Karl Marx on Grand Avenue. Yes.
Same one.
The same communist Karl Marx was also living in St. Paul
making
on
potato
Grand
chips,
Avenue, 1460.
Writing the Communist Manifesto.
Making potato chips as a capitalist and selling them to the potato famine in Russian.
Yep.
So none of that's true, but the potato chip stuff is true. Old Dutch.
And his name was Karl Marx.
And his name was Karl Marx. I was told of plots to kill public officials who were prosecuting people with poisonous fruit baskets. I was told of John Dillinger shooting his way out of the Lexington Commons apartment buildings in 1934, which is completely true. Apartment 303, him, his lady, and another gangster shot their way out of this building with 2 FBI agents and some St. Paul cops. He and his female friend at the time escaped in a black Hudson sedan parked on Goodrich. And the coolest part about the story is no one was hurt, so you can't feel bad 100 years later. But the dude who was with them stole a garbage collector's horse and uniform, disguised himself, and then trotted away off into the Mac.
How is there not a movie made about this story?
It's pretty cool. Maybe there will be. And it houses one of my favorite neighborhoods behind Mac Groveland called Tangletown, where none of the streets are northeast, west, south like the rest of Mac Groveland. They just kind of swirl and twist and meander.
Yeah.
And there is a house there which has, it sits on the corner of Cambridge. It's 161 Cambridge. And it's a sprawling lot with an old carriage house. And it's got a turret or like a witch's tower that kind of looks like the Prospect Park witch's tower.
Cool.
It is my favorite house in all of Mac Groveland. Incredible street, incredible neighborhood, and that house in particular is just gorgeous. It was designed by Cass Gilbert, who was an architect that built that house, built the United States Capitol, designed the United States Capitol, designed the Woolworth Building in New York City, the West Virginia State Capitol, and the Minnesota State Capitol.
Wow.
So really world-renowned architect at the time. And then...
And that Tangletown is kind of like what we were talking about with Wine Thief and Ale Jail and Estelle. It's kind of like right just north of there, right?
That's right on the edge of that. So that's on St. Clair.
Yeah.
If you go north of that.
Northeast of that, that's Tangletown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. It's kind of bookended by Macalester on one side and Fairview on the other.
Yeah.
And
it's cool to just like on a decent weather day, just park if you're not don't live around there, just park somewhere and just walk around Tangletown.
It's a good walker.
It's super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk about tree-lined neighborhoods, like that has just beautiful, mature trees.
For sure.
Some of the houses there, early 1900s, late 1800s, houses with really large lots, and you kind of lose the fact that you're in a major metro area in the United States.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I wanted to speak about was, it was kind of brought to my attention through a story about William T. Francis, who was Minnesota's first black attorney to pass the bar, admitted to the bar, and then he later became general counsel to Liberia. He lived in the Rondo neighborhood and wanted to buy his dream house. And Rondo, for those of you who don't know, the Rondo neighborhood was like, but was at the time before they built 94, a thriving black community in the heart of St. Paul.
Yes.
And it was just north and east of Mac Groveland, right?
Yes.
So more to think where 94 is now, running up through the Midway to like Dale.
We're going to have an episode
area
where we talk about what 94 did to the Rondo community and to the city in general.
Because it's a shame, because it was like our version of Black Wall Street, but instead of being bombed, they decided they were going to legally build a highway through it.
Right.
So he wants to move to his dream house in Mac Groveland, moves there, 2092 Sargent Avenue, and ultimately gets run out of the neighborhood by like large groups of white supremacists that existed in the neighborhood, burning crosses.
When was this roughly?
In the 1900, like early
20th century.
Yeah, early 20th century, and so it was such a, I don't want to say a cool story because it's a horrific story, but it's an important story, that the Minnesota History Theater put on a play about it, had a play about it called Not in Our Neighborhood. And it basically was about that, but brought into focus some of the racial covenants that exist on deeds and houses within the Mac Groveland community, some houses on Osceola, right? But also throughout the Twin Cities metro, larger metro in general. And so sort of a PSA, that's one of the largest drivers of home ownership, the home ownership gap, and the wealth gap between white families or white people and people of color is tied in with home ownership, and a lot of that comes down to redlining and covenants where you could not sell to a person of color, and it was written into the deed of your house. And a lot of these houses that people own today within these Twin Cities neighborhoods still have them on the deeds. So if you want to learn about that, go to stpaul.gov and search up something called the Just Deeds application. So just meaning like J-U-S-T, justice, like fair kind of deeds.
Yes.
And you can look up whether your home has a racial covenant written into the deed, and then the application to remove that from the covenant.
Wow. Yeah, that still continues as, like you said, reasons as the Twin Cities today is so behind and backwards in
one of the worst in the country.
Yeah, man, real bad in terms of the gap in home ownership.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really interesting history, and really not super long ago, which is crazy to say.
Yeah.
Because 100 years ago, I mean, sure, it sounds like a long time, but Damn, that's crazy. I'm glad that they who made the play about it?
The Minnesota History Theater.
Word.
Yep. So that's what I have about Mac Groveland. I love the community. Obviously, very different now than it was in the 1920s in terms of racial justice and everything else.
Yes.
But look, man, if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat the same mistakes. So
Well
I think
said.
it's important to talk about.
I forgot to mention one thing too on Stonebridge. If you ever go to the Como Zoo in St. Paul,
Yeah.
outside of the conservatory,
Yeah.
you'll see a frog. That frog
I know that frog.
was part of Stonebridge.
Yeah.
They
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Cool.
It was in Stonebridge.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it's there now.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Mac
TLDR.
Groveland. TLDR.
All right,
All
our
right.
guest today is, to my left is Shay Lunseth, the co-founder and co-owner of Organic Lawns by Lunseth. And we thought it would be a really good idea to have Shay on to talk about their business, what they do, why it's important, how it benefits homeowners that, may eventually be looking to sell, why that could be kind of a feather in their cap on that side of things, and where they're going, how they're going forward. And yeah, Shay, what brings you in today? The wrong question to ask.
What are you doing here, huh?
Why are you here? You just showed up. Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you and Eric, what you do? You started the business in 2007, I believe, right?
Yeah, so Eric started a commercial.
Your husband.
Yep, my husband started a commercial lawn care business in 2007. That was a choice we did make together because he got laid off from a job. He says, I think I could do this myself.
Mm-hmm.
So
He was working in the industry.
he's working in the industry.
Okay.
Funny enough, he was kind of selling lawn mowing for a job about probably 7 years prior to that, and he had connections still, and so he thought I could do lawn mowing, and I could rent it out of the house. He didn't know how to mow lawns. He knew how to sell them. Learned how to mow a lawn, and so it started just like in our garage. We had one employee for a number of years. A lot of cousins and friends helped us for things like leaf cleanup, fall cleanups. And just when he started to get more customers, we just needed some extra help. So then in 2010, our second child was born, and he was having me help in the business enough, and I said, I think there's a need for, I think there's a real market for the organic. And he
Because you were doing just commercial up to this point?
just commercial, and it was like commercial lawn mowing, a little bit of fertilizer, weed control, no snow removal, just a seasonal lawn mowing business
Sure.
for commercial accounts.
Hop on the murder wheel and just drive around big properties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. He got a couple good accounts that were just kind of like his babies, and he took care of them very, very well. And then it was like, well, I think we could do organic, and I think I could help. And I think so. After he did not want us to work together. He did not want that to happen.
didn't?
Oh no. He
He was like, "You're my wife, and I love you, and I cherish our time together, but we're gonna keep
Keep
the,
it
the two
separate.
worlds separate."
What
Okay.
industry were you in?
So I was selling flooring.
Oh, okay.
I've always had an environmentally mind, so I was the sustainable expert in this flooring company
Sure.
that worked with designers and property managers.
Okay.
And so we, and it was all a commission job at that point. And
Yeah.
so I thought, well, I think, I can help you. And I wasn't tied to that industry or to that
Sure.
job. I kind of job hop every 5 years up to that point. So, and we had 2 children. So the daycare costs were just
Yeah,
crazy.
crazy.
So I thought we could, I could do this part-time, help you start this organic, and then, but be there for the kids, some of the parts of the day.
Yeah.
And they spent a lot of, they would be in the office. Once we got an office there, we had, playpens there and
Sure.
all that stuff. But then as I said, okay, let's do this, I convinced him that this would be a good idea after him telling me very strongly he did not think it was a good idea. His parents did own a business together. That didn't work out. And so he was very apprehensive about
Sure.
that. And I understand why that would be the case. So but then when I was like, okay, well, what do we do? What should we do? And he was like, well, I think this, and historically we do that, and this is, why don't you just look on the internet? And I was like, that's really, I don't think we should have a business where we're just looking on the internet, or like, I can't sell something if I don't really understand the science behind it. It's too much there. So I went to the U and went and talked to a couple of advisors about actually where I could maybe get a higher degree to help this business. And so we thought for a little bit that I would do it more in the business side, and then just really think about entrepreneurship and small business ownership. But then it was, no, I really need to know the science side. And so a horticulture degree, you could do it as a professional study at the University of Minnesota. And that would give me the science behind it. I could be able to talk about it. And then I could also gear all of my classes toward our business. So I took a lot of directed studies that were just about products we use, so then I could research it. I got one of the professors at the U to say, you've changed my mind about organic lawn care. It used to be this, it doesn't work. And then when I started digging into it, writing papers about it, like one of them I kept, because he's like, you've changed my mind about how this works.
Were you at the St. Paul
St. Paul
campus? Ag campus, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
This it sounds remarkably not to get off topic for a second, but it sounds like really similar to my wife's approach to her sales in the Medicare or Medicaid healthcare field.
Yeah.
Of being like, I can't sell what I don't know and I don't believe in. So she went back to get her MPH, kind of the same deal.
Yep.
It's really cool that you dug that deep in order to get behind your business.
Yeah.
Probably a testament to why you guys are where you are at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I am proud of it. I do think we got ahead of the curve on it, because a lot of people like to try to do it. We've seen a lot of people come into the industry and not be successful.
Sure.
Part of how we were successful is we had the U backing us. I had a huge amount of resources when I had questions that they could. Everything I want to do, I want it to be intelligent. I want it to be, what does the research say? Sure. There was a product called Imprellis that a lot of people hopped in on because it was sold as a more environmentally friendly product.
Sure.
It killed millions of trees. And so I just thought, I'm never going to let a manufacturer sell me something.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be gimmicky. There's very, very few tools. They do these things. Here's our options. And then this is just, a lot of it's just cultural methods, what you do to a lawn that can make it healthier.
Sure.
So conventional wisdom up until, the late 2008, 9, 10 or whatever was that organic practices for growing a robust, healthy lawn didn't work, kind of?
Well, that weed control specifically didn't work. We know, in every class I took, it was building blocks. You start with soil science. So then it's there is a huge environment within our soil that do all sorts of things.
It's an ecosystem, right?
It's a huge ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's worth saving. It's one of our biggest, best resources in the world.
Yeah.
That we are depleting with chemicals.
Yeah.
And we can see that in farming, but we can also just see that in our home lawns. And that system also supports the critters above it and the birds and then us humans. And so just understanding that, it was okay, so soil health is important for growing good grass. Yeah. That alone is one step. Then it was more well, you can't control weeds. But if you're growing good grass, they'll naturally crowd out weeds. Yeah. And that was a lot of people's approach, well, we just that's what we do. We don't offer weed control. And if you want weed control, we'll spot spray with chemicals. We're we don't think you need to do that, though.
Yeah. So your weed control really is more about maintenance and how you start and control and aerate and water. Is it about how you cultivate your lawn to do the work naturally?
Yep. Keep the grass cut high with sharp blades. Deep and infrequent watering. A lot of people overwater. Aerating every year, good cultural method.
Everything I do not do, which I do want to do, but I'm just my blade hasn't seen a sharpener in 4 years, and I'm pretty sure that I scalped the yard the last time I did it by accident.
And those are easy mistakes, and when you just say to somebody, hey, you should do this, it's like their mind is like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
But those are just the simplest of things. And then we did know corn gluten was an option. That's our pre-emergent.
Okay.
Because Eric had this little stint at this company that was organic based, he knew about that. But there's a lot of research that's been around in organic farming for, I mean, I don't know, for let's say 70 plus years. It's been around. But they found out in Iowa from Nick Christians is the professor there that he was doing some research and that weeds weren't growing where they were putting corn gluten. And then they just learned it's a certain amount that's going to have some weed control. So once you have a pre-emergent, how we started was
What does pre-emergent mean for my dumb brain?
Yeah, so that's annual weeds that are going to emerge every year. You're preventing those from emerging.
Can you treat those in perennial gardens? So a lot of the companies are like, we won't spray the garden. Like, I don't want to bring competitors up, but their name rhymes with Blue Fiend. And they just like spray the yard and come with a 14-year-old who just got hired, who knows nothing, and they say what they won't do. Can you treat weeds in gardens and everything else with a more holistic approach?
You can. It depends on. There's different parts of our business, but like the lawn care, we're only going to deal with the
Gotcha. Okay.
lawn. Because some of our products are only meant for that.
Okay.
It's too fussy. It's not like you couldn't.
Okay.
So in my home garden, my vegetable garden, I use corn gluten around established weeds or,
Okay.
or plants.
Okay.
So anybody can use corn gluten around established plants. So I always encourage people to do it at their own home, but you have to put down a lot of it.
Okay.
So it's expensive. And so sometimes people are like, I sprinkled it around, it didn't do anything. I'm like, you have to put down 20 pounds per 1,000 square feet, which you can get 100% weed control if you put down like 300 pounds per 1,000
Gotcha.
square feet, which would just be like a mulch in there. But it has a lot of nitrogen. So there's a lot of controversy about how it works, but basically there's a dipeptide bond that is inhibiting the root from fully forming on plants that are trying to establish a root.
And does that, and not to get too in the weeds on, like,
You're
didn't mean to do
hilarious,
that.
Casey.
I
Jesus,
really
bro.
did not mean to do that. But established plant and a perennial, right? Say you have a hosta that comes up every year. Does that mean the hosta is established because it's been growing for 5 years already and you can do it before it starts growing? Or does that mean when it's like out and in full bloom in the middle of the summer?
It's when it's already established. So it'd work even around like bulbs. Those are like little root bulbs. So the root's
amazing.
already there.
Okay.
And so yeah, it's once that root's fully formed, that plant is not affected by it, and it just gives it nitrogen, so it'll help it grow.
Because weeds are new every year.
Some.
Oh,
Some are not.
Okay.
So you have the pre-emergent for annuals, and those
Okay.
are going to be, there's knotweed, there's dandelions are biennial, so they're perennials and they're annuals.
Okay.
There's a lot of weeds that are annuals that come in. So it's helping with those which is also why the timing has to be right. Because if you put it after that root forms and you put down corn gluten, it only helps it grow. So it's going to encourage the growth. It's going to encourage growth of any perennial. So weeds that are perennials like creeping Charlie, plantains, clover, those are all perennials. So those that'll just help kind of feed it.
This is what I hear. I know enough to do everything wrong, but think I'm doing it right. And I should probably just pick up the phone and call you to come do it the correct way.
Well, and I'm like, I give free advice because I also I appreciate when somebody wants to avoid chemicals.
Yeah.
And so then we put information out there to say, hey, you could do this yourself.
Sure.
Well, and it sounds to me like if you're coming at a problem like this with intelligence and science and data, like you did at the beginning in 2010 or whatever, like if that's your base point, if you're starting from there, that you're going to be successful just based off that alone. If you're not relying on, like you said, gimmicks and things like that, and you know what you're doing, you're going to run a successful business, especially like this. And I wanted to ask too, like, cause I use Lunseth in my own yard, and something like this isn't a month long. It doesn't take a month to fix, right? Like if you were to torch the grass with fertilizer and poison, it would look great. But like this takes years, right?
Years, and that's a good point because all I do is set expectations.
Yeah.
Here, if you want to do this, here's what we say: work this program for 3 years. We can get you about 85%, or we can get you 95% weed free. So the corn gluten is going to start preventing 85% of new weeds after 3 years. We do have a product, and this was brought to us by a customer who had heard about it, and we're like, oh, and then did some research on it, and it was while I was still in school, so I had some time to look into it, was this chelated iron that works as a post-emergent for some broadleaf weeds, but it can help solve the creeping Charlie issue. That's a perennial. It can get rid of plantains. It can get rid of clover. It can get rid of thistles, and those are really tough ones because those aren't going to work with a pre-emergent. So, when people say, well, I've got, like, even the U will say on their website, if you have more than 50% weeds, you should start over. I just don't believe in that. I think it's expensive. You have to do it at the right time of year or you're still going to have weed issues. Just getting rid of the lawn and starting over doesn't, like, even if you put down sod, it doesn't mean that a weed's not going to find its way through there, especially if you're not taking care of that sod. People put it down like carpet. They say it looked good for 2 years. They did absolutely nothing to take care of it. It's a living plant. Most of the time that sod will fail in that third year. We'll start to see issues with it because the roots from that sod soil just stayed there. And so you think it's just like top 2 inches of the soil. They're not encouraged to go to the existing soil. There's maybe a problem with the existing soil. You have to do something to encourage that to root. You have to fertilize it. You have to take care of it. Most of the time, you have to know what kind of grass you have. Most of the time, it's 100% Kentucky bluegrass, which needs a lot of sunlight, a lot of water.
We just had a bunch of sod laid from a project.
Yep. Needs a lot of sun, a lot of water, a lot of nitrogen. Diversifying it with low maintenance species, fine fescue is really important.
I've overseeded with that. Yeah.
And then aerate for at least 6 years.
I have not done any of that.
You have to aerate
Call
every
Shay.
year.
This
She'll
is
get you
going
on
to
a
be
program.
another conversation afterwards.
Are you
Like,
aerating? Like what are you doing this time of year? Like before we get a layer of snow, is it aeration time or are we past aeration?
We're past that time.
Okay. That's
Aeration
more like
needs about
October?
it needs 4 weeks to recover before you'd get a big snowfall. So we really stop at the first week of October because you have no idea what 4 weeks what will come. And that's just, it stresses out the grass. Anything you do, even cutting the grass, stresses it out. So you just want to give it some time to recover as it enters into winter.
So I made a
totally
big
makes
mistake
sense.
by mowing over my 3-week installed sod to get rid of all the leaves.
Oh, no, because that's established.
With your dull blade.
And
It doesn't pull up at this point.
Yeah, if it's not pulling up, you're fine.
Okay.
You just want to, and you're right, mulching leaves is great because you don't need to rake your leaves.
Yeah.
Mulch them into the soil. It's free fertilizer. No, that's all a good plan.
Another question for you. Is a weed only a weed because we don't like the way it looks?
Yeah, because a weed is like defined as it's in the wrong place, and that's determined by us.
So creeping Jenny, you say creeping Charlie. They both creep.
Yeah.
We like creeping Jenny. We put it
What is
somewhere on
creeping
purpose.
Jenny?
It's like this bright
Is it different than
lime
creeping Charlie?
greeny- Yeah, it's different.
Oh.
It's kind of these fine leaves that creep that are lime green, and it's really pretty and it's good ground cover. But like creeping Charlie, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
I need to
And
get
creeping
rid of that.
Charlie is a tough one because it is meant to be a ground cover. So these things work really great where there's no grass. It'll come in, it'll cover it all
Yeah.
up. But creeping Charlie will go, I've seen it travel over bushes. I've seen it travel over wanted plants. So it can take over and then it's a neighborhood issue.
Gotcha.
So like textbook is, be persistent against it. You could just keep raking it up. Like just
Sure.
stress it out all the time. But you have to work on it as a neighborhood because if you try to
Interesting.
get it out, but no one else around you is, it will
Then
find
you're-
a way.
Yeah,
That is interesting.
Kind of like buckthorn.
Yes.
Okay.
But just keep an eye. Like we can get it under control. Thick, healthy grass helps keep it at bay.
Okay.
So where there's a bare spot, put some grass there. Make sure fill it in.
Sure.
Make sure though the grass for the right sunshade level, like under trees where people are like, I'm trying to always grow grass or I'm putting sod under. I'm like, there's nothing that's going to grow under there.
Yeah.
Mulch it. Don't give it an opportunity for some weeds to come in and thrive in these spaces because that's what they're meant to do. They all have a place. And there's some advocates that say there's a small amount of pollinator benefits to creeping Charlie, so they're saying let it be. It doesn't support that many pollinators, and not to any significant degree to encourage it.
Sure.
You're not. I don't know if you're better off because I'm not an expert, but like if you have a little subset of your corner of your lawn, you can dedicate for pollinators. Like you should just do that.
Yes.
Right.
Totally.
If you're concerned with pollinators, like a wildflower garden or a pollinator.
Yeah.
People they're doing, there's a controversy right now too about white clover, but white clover supports a ton of pollinators. And some people sow it in their lawns. Some people, try to get rid of it. I will say you just naturally will have some.
Mm-hmm.
Letting that little bit naturally stay there is helpful. But you don't have to, if you want to get rid of it and then put a pollinator garden that's going to support pollinators all season long, that's a really good choice. But it's all about like talking to the customer, seeing what they are interested in doing, what the aesthetic they can handle. It's like, what tolerance do you have?
Sure.
There's a lot of people that do nothing with their lawn. I'm like, that's fine too.
Yeah. Do you landscape design as well as? So I guess what services do you provide? Like you obviously mow
Residentially.
lawns.
Residentially.
Yeah.
Yep. So we do landscaping, and that would include anything. I mean, we
Like
do
boulder installs,
boulders, retaining walls, outdoor kitchens, but also small pollinator gardens, boulevard gardens, where those boulevards that are really harsh, put a bunch of pollinator plants in there. We do, pavers, patios, all this stuff.
Wow.
So that's really been growing. As when we first started, we didn't have the expertise in that. Sure. But it was hiring who's now our landscaping director. We also have a designer on staff.
It's a lot more involved than I thought. We just had a retaining wall and a paver patio put in, and it's a lot. There's a lot that goes into doing it the correct way to make sure that you're not screwed 3 years down the road with settling and weeds and cracks and like poor drainage and everything else.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
That you can't just hop up and do it. You need somebody who knows what they're doing, and it wasn't our expertise, like the drainage part.
Yeah.
We have people on staff that know exactly what to do for these situations.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Plowing.
We don't do residential, only commercial.
Okay, only commercial plowing.
Yep. And we do, we only do for residential. There's no choice for anything but organic lawn care.
Yeah, good. Make people do
And
the
the
right
reason
thing.
I love it, because I said I use it, is you pay once a year, and that covers you for the whole year, and then you'll just get emails from Shay, or I get them from Shay. I don't know if you send them to everybody, like from you, but that says, okay, this is
Shay
our
has
schedule.
a CRM that does it for her.
I don't know what you're talking about. They're all from her individually, specific to each customer.
Only for you,
Yeah, that's right. But it lays out an email say, okay, it's this time of year. We're coming out on this date to do this work for this reason, and this is what it will produce. And you get multiple emails of those throughout the year. And it's kind of a year-long relationship, right? Where you'll come out and you'll do the services that you say you're going to do to help produce the result you want.
If you need a spot checkup for any reason, do you guys?
So we love communication. So there's some people, we say, here's a standard program. This is the minimum we would recommend. There's some people that say, I really can't do that. I can only do these things. So I'll say, well, what's most important to you?
Sure.
Then here's a program. Just know I'm not going to be able to control weeds the same way because you're not doing the whole thing.
Sure.
There's some people that will put in there, say, hey, we don't necessarily, I'm not out on your lawn. If you know you have creeping Charlie, say something.
Yeah.
Because we will never get it under control unless you have multiple irons.
Yeah.
So we will never satisfy you until we do that. After 3 years of being on the program, then we will give you a free soil test. We'll see where the nutrients are. We'll see where the pH is. We want to see the organic matter be in a pretty good shape. And then we'll have eyes on it from the office. And then communicate about, here's what I see, here's what I'm going to adjust your program for what I think you should need. But what is important to me may not be the same for the homeowner. When the crews are out on the lawn, they'll say, why didn't they, see that clover patch and say anything? Well, they see clover patches in lawns where they've sowed it. So they don't know what what's important to you.
Sure.
And you know, when they are out on the lawn, they'll take pictures of things that look concerning to them that they'll bring to the office. But we always talk about communicate.
Sure.
If you are upset, just say something to
Sure.
the office because we can do something about it,
Sure.
or educate you about why you shouldn't be upset about
Sure.
that. You know, and we
Sure.
just try up front. We do a lot of videos, a lot of document sharing to say, here's what you should expect. Nobody reads it or watches those things. They just make their own assumptions about what you're going to do. So I always
Yeah.
encourage somebody, or it's like two people in the household. One person's reading the stuff and is informed. One person doesn't care and only wants these check boxes.
Yeah,
and
they
they're
want
very
these results
upset.
by this time.
Yeah. And they're like, why isn't this happening? I'm like, did
Yeah.
you read anything? They said, no. They don't get the email notifications either, what to do before and after.
Yeah.
Some of those are, if you didn't listen to those, it will not, like if you don't water seed in, it won't grow.
Yeah.
That's just,
Yeah.
that's how
You
it
put
works.
grass seed down in August and it didn't rain for a month and it's not
Yeah,
growing.
and they'll say, what
I
the
watered
heck
it
happened?
once.
And they're like, well, I'm not going to water. I like organic, I don't water. I'm like, well, that's fine, but let's take the seed out of your program
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's just a waste.
You ever just dump rocks on somebody's yard and go organic? No.
No.
Well, and I
Could be a thing that catches on.
before
Yeah.
before
Oh,
we
yeah.
finish up,
Yeah.
I mean, I just think is an added benefit if you're ever thinking about selling your home, whether probably far down the line, if you haven't started with Shay and Organic Lawns by Lunseth, is get started now, because as when you're selling a house as realtors, we're trying to come up with as many cool things that are marketable about your house. And that's a really big marketable thing. Then you can say, hey, we've had Organic Lawns by Lunseth do this over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And it's our whole yard is a benefit because of it.
Even
Yeah.
from a marketing standpoint, it's great, but probably just as much from what you can visually see in a curb appeal standpoint between when you started and 3 years later.
Yeah.
The difference,
Yeah. Yeah.
just in the pictures that you can take.
I'll
So-
take pictures of like the neighbor's lawn that the Creeping Charlie kind of halts.
Mm-hmm.
And there is not a chemical put on this lawn. Or somebody will
That's so
move
cool.
and they'll gift the rest of that program. Because they can get
Yeah.
the money back. But
Yeah.
they're like, no, let's just keep it going. Although the new homeowner has to be on board with it.
Yeah.
Some of them are not. And
Yeah.
they want to do things their own way. And that's
Pet
totally
and
fine.
child friendly, I'm assuming, much more so.
Yes, I think that's our main customers, like dogs,
Yeah.
dog owners, people, because they're the ones that are eating, laying, playing
Yeah.
in it way more than children are.
Yeah.
And they're, small children are the most susceptible. That's where when we got started, it was like when our first child was born, I did not even think about that there were chemicals on our lawn.
Yeah.
And that Eric was coming home from work and doing that. I just didn't really notice that. And
Yeah.
then I was like, well, we can't do that anymore because I'm putting her in that lawn, and
Sure.
that's a growing
Sure.
child.
Sure.
And so the same for dogs. But they're eating it more. They're playing in it more. They're
Yeah.
out there all the time.
Yeah.
So dog owners, that's a huge market for us, and that's important because it's direct. Like lawn chemicals are directly linked
For sure.
to dog cancer.
So if you love your dog,
Mm-hmm.
call Lawns, Organic Lawns by Lunseth.
Yeah.
What's
Because
the
if
website?
you don't love your dog, clearly. I'm putting it out there.
It's true.
Yeah.
What if people want to learn more or sign up for services? What's the website?
So you can go to lunseth.org, and that's Lun like fun, no D. And if you go there, you can link to Organic Lawns by Lunseth.com or Lunseth Lawncare, which is our landscaping. Depending on what you want to get.
Sure.
Or the Organic Lawns by Lunseth.com has a link to landscaping.
For those
as well.
watching, I'll make sure I put a link, and we'll make sure that we put a link in the description for all the Spotify's and YouTubes and whatever else to make sure
Sweet.
it's pretty easy for people.
Yeah.
This is super. It's been super interesting. As a homeowner who did not care about lawns at all, like I was not the I need the perfect lawn kind of guy.
Yeah.
After owning a home for a long time, you magically start to want to be an expert and care about lawns and gardening and everything else. So
Yeah, because it's your space.
yeah, and Andrew's been using you. I have no idea. I I mean, I feel like I've seen billboards or seen the truck or in my neighborhood, but yeah.
Super
gonna-
Now
important.
you'll always see.
Well,
Once you see it
now
once,
I'm
you
gonna
can't.
make it
Yeah.
happen because I fired Schmoobling a couple years ago, and
I finally
have
figured
been
that out
looking.
now. First time
for
you were like,
somebody
it rhymes
else.
with that, I was like, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Picked up on it.
Yeah, it's been a slow day today.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks so much for
Yeah,
coming
you're
by,
welcome.
Shay. We
Yeah.
really appreciate it. And are you going to stick around for Boom Times quick?
Yes, yes.
Welcome to Boom Times, a segment called Boom Times, Boom Times.
All right, we've got a Boom Times newbie. So, Boom Times, BMTMS. We call it Boom Times. There's no vowels.
No O's.
But it's BMTMS.
No
We
E's.
talk about books,
No I's.
music, TV, movies, and sports, but really anything we want to talk about that any content we've been enjoying lately.
It's like coffee talk. This is like the
Oh,
old
yeah.
Saturday Night Live coffee
Linda
talk.
Richmond.
That's right.
It's very much like coffee talk.
Yeah.
I guess I'll kick it off by talking about a movie. My wife and I watched this movie called Long Legs. Have you? Okay.
This horror movie, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
this horror movie. So I had heard a lot about it over the last like 6 months. You can rent it on streaming now for like $5 or whatever. So we did the other night, and I was so excited about seeing Long Legs because I was like, okay, it's about this female FBI agent and a serial killer, and I'm like, okay, Silence of the Lambs. It's going to be like Silence of the Lambs, and it got really good reviews. And it's my wife can attest to this too. After we got done watching it, and even throughout, we were like, is this movie good or bad? Have you guys seen it?
No.
I'm a
trailers.
big horror movie fan, and it's on my list, but
Yeah.
I have had feedback that it's not good, so I have not wasted my
I
time.
couldn't, I heard such good things, like from reviews when it first came out. I didn't really hear anything negative, so I was very excited to see it. And I was like, is this like a B+ or an F? Is this ridiculous? Like, I'm not going to spoil anything, but like, the serial killer is named Longlegs. That's not spoiling anything. Is this scary or ridiculous? Anyway, I think we came out of it on the ridiculous side. Like,
Yeah.
it's just it's a little too much. So anyway, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Let me know what you think. This must be the place pod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think.
What's the number, Andrew?
612-824-824.
234-1889.
234-18.
We're week 7 now, and this guy can't remember a phone number.
234-1889.
You're a horror movie person.
Yeah.
My son made us watch Creep. Have you ever seen Creep?
No.
Mark Duplass.
No.
Do you know who the Duplass brothers
I
are?
do, yeah.
Yep.
He was on the fantasy football comedy show with The League.
Oh, I didn't see that one. But he's in a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Mark Duplass is
He's
The
in
League.
the HBO one about the news, Good Morning,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah,
It's
the one
the
with
morning show.
Jennifer Aniston and
It's a super weird, quirky, first-person comedy / horror movie.
Oh.
I don't think it's rated particularly well because it's one of those, when you said I can't decide whether it's good or bad, firmly in that category, but definitely interesting.
Creep.
Creep.
All
Mark
right.
Duplass. Yeah, it's very weird. It can be a family watch because it's not
I'm into
like
it.
it's not gory. There's no like gratuitous violence.
Yeah. My daughter's at the age
like a
now where
thinker.
she's
Yeah.
like, she loves horror movies.
Yes.
She's 12.
Yes.
and
Same with
this is
mine.
right up her alley.
Same with mine.
All right. What do you got, Shay? Boom Times.
You got anything?
You got anything? Have you
wanna
been thinking
think
of
for a
anything?
second?
Oh,
I can
man,
What
give
have you
you
been
horror
consuming
movies?
lately? Not
No,
horror
no,
movies.
anything.
Anything.
Anything?
music shows you've
Anything.
been to.
Boom Times.
Oh my
TVs,
gosh.
your-
Well, I recently became, in 2025, I will be a platinum member at First Ave.
Ooh, you go to a lot of shows.
I go to a lot of shows. I was a gold member last year, and
Okay.
this is all new to me.
Okay.
But I'm kind of like, I just love music. I love live
You go with
music.
Eric or friends or?
Yeah, not Eric. I give a plug out to my Fab Four girls. There's 4 of us, and we go to many shows together. That's
What
how
does
we
a
prefer
platinum
it.
membership do for
So
you?
platinum, it's like I will get a separate entrance.
Okay.
So as a gold member, you can get tables,
Okay.
but it's first come, first serve. So platinum's going to have the first of the first.
Oh.
So
option.
those little tables up on the second floor that kind of go around the
Okay.
Yep.
balcony.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for
always
a
jealous every time I go to a
40s
concert.
person,
Yeah.
it's kind of sweet to sit down,
sit
depending
down?
on the show.
Yeah.
Is it only First Ave or is it like any First Ave?
So any First Ave affiliate, so that's Fine Line, Turf,
yeah.
and the Fitzgeralds
That's
and 7th Street.
Yeah.
As a platinum member, I
And the
get to go to
Palace.
every Turf show. Palace, though, doesn't get the same
Got it.
membership.
Because it's bigger and
they're
they have
half
bigger-
owned by somebody else,
Oh,
I
You
think.
need a
Okay.
diamond membership for the Palace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You get pre-sales information. There's a lot of
Sure.
like cool things like this is going to sell out. This has
I just
sold
saw
out.
PJ Harvey at the Palace that was discussed on a previous
That's right.
episode. So what are some of your favorite
Yeah.
recent-ish shows you've seen at First Ave with your girls that you
Fab
plugged?
Four.
Yeah, the Fab Four.
The Fab Four, yeah.
So we saw the greatest show in the last year was Genesis Owusu at
Who dat?
Vineland. Oh man, he's like an Australian kind of rapper. He was in a too small venue for him. It was mind blowing. It was so good.
Which at First Ave or was
that
it
was at Fine Line.
at Fine Line? You said okay.
Yep.
Organic Lawns by Lunseth, Australian rapper are not. There's
Venn
not two
diagram.
things
Oh,
that I
man,
thought
yeah.
was going to happen today. That's
Okay,
awesome.
that's cool.
He's very, very good. I also, Saint Motel was one of my favorites of the year. They are coming back in May.
Saint
know
Motel.
any of
Saint Motel, Saint Motel's super, super fun. They're like,
are they like?
And the singer has a tie to Minneapolis. He was born here, so he has this little, he has some Minneapolis love. They're kind of like indie rock.
Okay.
We're all film students, so their songs are a lot about film. If you listen to their lyrics, really, really good
love
lyrics.
it.
I just love them so much. So that was a good one. And then I went to my first show by myself because now I'm exploring just going to a show
Yeah.
because I want to.
Yeah.
And so I went a couple weeks ago to Dirt Wire, and they're more like I like a lot of I'm gonna say folk, but not folk, bluegrass, but they're like a heavier bluegrass.
I was
with
gonna
like
say, it
weird
sounds like
instruments.
death metal.
It's
Dirt
like
Wire. What's
their
it's like
name?
a
Dirt Wire?
heavy, Dirt Wire is like a heavier bluegrass with these weird, like they played these weird instruments, like they had strings that made
Like-
wingy noises,
Okay.
and
They
I
play
don't
the
know.
spoons.
Not quite spoons.
Didgeridoo?
Didgeridoo,
That's
like that
the
kind
Australian
of stuff.
rapper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The didgeridoo.
He didn't do any
Was that at the
didgeridoo.
entry or where like?
That one was at First Ave.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
The entry, like I love all their properties and I always have, and I've probably been to a show with Eric before at First Ave, but the entry is like one of my favorite places just because it's so tiny.
It's so
Yeah.
you're
It's like
so
230 people.
yes.
And that's packed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And some of my fondest shows memories are at that venue, also First Ave, but
Yeah.
And I will like these memberships. What's nice about them is you get some free shows to different places, and they say explore new things. So I went to Ruby Waters. I didn't know anything about her. She's
Really good.
unbelievable,
Who's she?
unbelievable.
What does she do?
She is.
What does she do?
She's an Indigenous person from Canada
Okay.
that sings like very heartfelt, just good lyrics. There's actually when you read the lyrics, they're like pretty,
Yeah.
very explicit lyrics. But
Mm-hmm.
she was playing at the Turf, and it was like everyone
the
there
Turf.
knew her, and the vibe. I mean, it was
That's amazing.
unbelievable. I think it was the first U.S. show. Maybe the opener was, but it was just like holy cow.
I
Really
just
good.
went to a show
That's right.
where we talked about
That's right.
on one of the episodes here on BoomTimes at the Turf, Coco Roco, which is like a London-based
I've heard that one.
soul, jazz, lovers rock,
Oh,
two lead
Sade.
chicks playing trombone and trumpet, and is amazing.
so cool.
Well, in the interest
That's
of,
really cool.
In the interest of brevity, we
Yeah.
always say that word brevity because we always our
Not
goal
brief.
is brevity, and we are
Every
always,
week we're like
every week we're like
under an hour, and every week I'm like, I
"God
think
damn
I can get it
we
down
have
to an hour and
edit
20
down
if I edit.
2 hours down to an hour. What the hell? I'm gonna mention since we were talking about music. So there's been this website for 25 years called.
In the interest of brevity, he's going to mention more things.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna push it along.
all right, okay,
Casey.
all right.
Push it along.
Okay.
There's been a website for 25 years called Fluxblog. It's fluxblog.org. It's very simple. It's run by this man named Matthew Perpetua. He's great. He's a music writer. But if you go on Spotify, presumably other platforms as well, but if you go on Spotify and type in Flux Blog and then click on the playlist button, he has these curated playlists that he's made for any, like, it's my favorite music rabbit hole to go down for depending on what I'm doing. Like if I'm just cooking dinner, you just go through it, and I'm looking at it right now. So like he's got one called the late 90s Sophisticate, where it's like Massive Attack and Air and Bjork and Stereolab. And these are like hours long playlists. And he's got one for each year going back to like the 60s. He's got like the young folks, Twee Indie, 2004 to 2009. The Dawn of Alternative, 88 to 90. Like, there are hundreds of playlists. Like, I don't know how this man finds the time, but I Need a Freak, 80s sleaze classics. Like, this shit is...
Is that the name of the episode? Did we just
find
the name of the episode this week?
Yeah.
Or asbestos abatement.
Yeah.
Crickets chirping. So, yeah, I just want to... If you're ever, like, lost in the ocean of music that there is to choose from, and you don't know what to do, just search up Flux Blog, hit playlists, and you can find a playlist that will make your day. What else you got, Casey?
I just have one thing this week, not music related, but it's a show. I believe it's on Apple. No, it's on HBO. It's called Somebody Somewhere.
It's my most favorite show. I can't stop thinking
It's
about
in season 3 right now.
I've not watched it.
The main star,
I've skipped past it on HBO.
The main
my
star,
gosh,
Bridget Everett,
yeah.
who I think she's a comedian.
Yeah.
And it's a comedy, but it's also like a drama and heartfelt and real life. And it takes place in Manhattan, Kansas. And it feels real because it's like this intermingling of characters that feel authentic but unexpected in rural America, and how they communicate with each other and their friendships and their lives and what they go through. And there's I believe there's some gender transitioning actors in the show, and it's just like all walks of life, and it's so good. It's such a great show, and I'm glad that you had that reaction, because my wife and I look forward to it every season, and I think we're through like episode 4 or 5 of the new season, whatever's out, and it's phenomenal. And if you haven't seen it,
I have not.
Oh, you get to just binge a season.
It's one of those shows
so
where you
good.
guys are like, I wish I could have never seen it so I can know what it's like to watch it again for the first time. Like one of that
it's
good.
really good. Like it catches you by surprise. At first you're like,
And I say, give it through the second episode, because at first you're kind of, you don't understand the feel of it. And then later on, you see what they're doing, and it's so great. Like the scenes sometimes go a little longer. Like they'll pause on things like their face and you don't know why, but you're like, because you're feeling it with them, they're just being really real. Like it's really real situations, and their friendships, how it all forms. That's what you find out in the beginning, but it's like the base of how they are, and like how friendships are really important.
And how relationships make their way in between these friendships, and how people grapple with that. And it's all in like a really engaging, sometimes funny, sometimes heartbreaking way.
You could cry, you laugh. There's singing in it too, so there's you hear music. It's I think the most, I don't know if what it's getting rated, but it's like the most fabulous show right now.
It's great.
It's so good.
Wow.
So Somebody Somewhere.
Yep.
Somebody Somewhere.
It's on HBO.
Shay and Casey are about to start crying. So.
Yeah, it's like on Sunday nights, because I've been thinking already, I can't wait till Sunday night, because I'm like, or I want to forget about it over the weekend, so then I might get 2 episodes in a row.
Yes.
That would be so great.
I will say,
and they're only 30 minutes. Like.
This does for sure get the JP stamp of approval.
We'll tell you what that means later.
Okay.
All right, that was a great BoomTimes. I think that was our
Thanks
best.
for joining us. For that.
Thank you, Shay. Thanks so much.
That was the briefest one.
It was the briefest BoomTimes.
This didn't go on
and we didn't even talk
about basketball.
We didn't even talk about basketball, which we're
not going to
talk about
next week.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, thank you, Shay.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
This must be the place. Yeah, this must be the place. Ain't no time to waste. Ain't no time to waste. whether you in Minneapolis or St. Paul, Bloomington to Maple Grove, from the east side to the west side.